Friends, peace be with you. Yes, it's true. Physically, right now, I feel as good as if I had hair. And you know what that means. When you have hair, it blows in the wind and you can feel the goodness around you. But hair is not everything, as my bald friends tell me. The chemo has caught up to me again, and my hair was falling out in clumps. That happens after a regimen of the chemo, of course, and so I had to shave the rest of it off. Getting tired of picking it out of my food. But I do. Physically, I feel so good. I've been responding well to the treatments since the last treatment. On May 29th was the first treatment that they moved me down just to 2 chemos. We got rid of the oxaliplatin because of the extreme numbness in my fingers and my feet, and my body was not producing platelets as it should in order for me to continue therapy because of the amount of chemotherapy over the last 3 years. It's kind of catching up to my body, so we decided we would drop down to just the 2 chemos. And so when we did that, it was because the CT scan had showed that the tumor on the pancreas had decreased in size, not as much as I would have hoped in the progression, but my doctor feels like we're still way out in front of it, and we can go with the 2 chemotherapies. If you remember my first time through this, I did 13 regimens of the oxaliplatin, irinotecan, and the 5-FU, which is the pump that I bring home, the infusion pump, for 3 days. I did 13 rounds of that, so this time I did 12 rounds, and now we're going to go down to the 2 as we did before. I did 2 of the chemo regimens for over a year when I ended up being in remission for a period of time. So we're hoping that that will be the case. Physically, as I said, I feel good, so I'm hoping that my body's been making those platelets that I need in order to take chemo, which will be tomorrow on the 12th. I will go. So please pray that tomorrow when we do the blood work, I'll be okay for the chemotherapy so that I can continue to move forward in that direction towards remission, hopefully. Probably by Christmas I should be at that point. So yeah, I rode my bike today 10 miles just to get out and clear my mind and just be, in prayer as I ride. It's so nice to be able to pray. So I'm healthy at this point, so God's still answering our prayers, and I appreciate you to continue to pray for me so that I can continue treatment tomorrow and take that one more step, one day at a time, towards God's gift of healing through the intercession of Our Lady, Mother Seton, St. Peregrine, and St. John Neumann, and all the saints who we've been asking for grace and peace. The spiritual updates is a part of my message to you over the years, has been a reflection of where I am in prayer, what is happening to me personally, and how I am listening and hearing the gifts of God's love for us. It is something that over the time, many of you who are suffering from cancer, particularly pancreatic cancer, for those who are listening as you do from all over the world, really, to my message, I try to keep that message one of significance to keeping our focus on the love of God and keeping our focus on how He feeds and nurtures us. The Eucharist is the source and summit of our lives, and as a priest over the years, the most important time of the Mass always was for me was following the creed and the intercessory prayers. And what do I mean by that? Well, right before that, it's an opportunity to preach. It's an opportunity to share God's word. And sometimes, the Holy Spirit is good to me, and that word is one that resonates with many of you. And sometimes it made us all laugh, and many times it called us to a mission for a particular week to accomplish something in the name of the Lord. Other times, it's just not there. Sometimes you prepare and you deliver, and thank goodness for the gospel message that was already heard. There is something worthwhile there. But when I sit down at that time in Mass, I always say one prayer before I get up for the offertory. And that is that all of us, myself included, whatever we had heard in the Word and proclaimed, that we would realize that now we receive everything that we need. Everything we need in the Holy Eucharist. So no matter how well the homily was or how poor it was, how we received it, this is where the priesthood really comes in, is to have that opportunity to go to the altar to offer the sacrifice of the Mass. I'm sharing that with you right now because I think that since I've been offering Mass in private, at first I really struggled with that from the perspective of not having a congregation sharing with me in the Mass, sharing in the prayers. But the grace that I've asked for in that period of time was not to be distracted by what I couldn't have or participate in or see, but what was still there, what is still there, and that is Jesus coming to us, veiled, yes, in bread and wine, but to nurture us. To nurture us in our times of joy, and to nurture us in our times of sorrow, to nurture us in the times of despair and looking for hope and towards the kingdom of God. Because if we suffer anything, when we suffer, really the word means we've experienced a loss of health, loss of relationships, a loss of direction. And that is where we bring it to the Lord to nurture us so that we can take that next step on the journey. I share that with you because it's really important that we have not lost that, nor do we ever lose that unless we forget why we really celebrate the Mass, why we are obliged, why we fulfill that obligation on Sunday, is to be fed in the Word, restored and transformed in the Holy Eucharist. Father Boniface Hicks came to Immaculate Conception last week, and he shared from his book, In the Silence of the Mass. And what we look for in the silence of the Mass is really the part where we kind of put on blinders, and we really don't see or need to see or feel the presence of anyone except what is being offered to us. And in that silence, that's where we find peace. And in that reception, in the silence of our hearts, there is where we find the next step on the journey. So I encourage you to recognize that. If you and I can share in the Holy Eucharist, in the places for where we are, then we share it as one in the body of Christ. We continue together to grow. Because losses is what is sorrow in our lives. But losses also challenge us to put our faith in Him alone. So what should be our mission when we receive the Eucharist? First, in thanksgiving for the gift for which he presents to us. And secondly, that we always open that gift so that we can go forth in charity and love. Sometimes we receive overwhelming news that can truly change our lives. There are so many responses to the recognition that things will never be the same again. That happened 3 years ago when I received the gift of preparing for my own death with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. We recognize that these things happen sometimes, and we can ask why, or we can do like we saw in the first reading on Sunday when Adam and Eve were in the garden and they recognized their nakedness. Immediately, Satan had them pointing towards someone else, blaming someone else. But what God was interested in Adam and Eve was why they knew that they were naked. They knew they were naked because they no longer understood how to trust in God, because they had their union with God was blinded by this change in their own lives. Nakedness means that we can only see and feel what our human heart is speaking to, and not to the will of God. And that's why Jesus took on flesh, to remind us that it is weak. It is subjected to Satan's temptation to answer questions that only God's will can answer. And that's why the prayer in the garden was so important, because Jesus realized that the Father would provide for him, that whatever he was going to suffer, in his human nature, he would not be naked. Even though they would strip him of his clothes on the cross prior to being crucified, he was never without. For he continued to choose the Father over his own comfort, his own will. So, we are the body of Christ, with the crucified one. And what we don't want is to lose the things that make us who we are. And that is to follow Christ, to live with him, to walk with him, to be fed by him, to share in his suffering with him, only to do the will of the Father. There are so many things that could easily fall into our lives at this time. We can have resentment, we can have anger, we certainly can have disappointment, we can feel bewildered. But those are all the things of half-truths that Satan wants us to focus on, instead of the things that we have and can still and continue to have. I wanted to be really angry when I found out about my prognosis of stage 4 pancreatic cancer. But I really recognize that any kind of anger, as they say, would be like taking poison yourself and thinking that it's killing whoever you resent for the reason of your illness. Anger has no place in our journey of hope. My love for you is so great because you have prayed with me and helped me through my suffering. And we've seen the results of God's prayers when we focus on His will and His desire to hear our prayers. There have been so many people who have asked me to pray for them, who know that when we share in common something that's difficult, those prayers lift us up. So these times are difficult. They may want us to respond in a way that is not of our soul's desire, but truly of our heart. So what I want to do is continue to encourage you that every time you receive the Holy Eucharist, remember, before He could become the bread of life, He had to be the crucified Christ. And when we share in His suffering, then the nourishment is always the food, the viaticum for the journey on the way. So let us remember always, focus on the Eucharist, the sacrifice, the source and summit of our lives. Put the blinders on and listen in the silence of the gift of the sacramental church. And then the crucified Christ, as He did for St. Peregrine, will reach down from His cross and heal us. Heal us of our wounds, so that we may continue to be true disciples in His name. Tomorrow, the 12th, when I am having my chemotherapy, the parish staff at Immaculate Conception is prepared by the invitation of hosting a part of the procession, a national Eucharistic procession that will be carried out throughout our country. To be the place where we stop to gather and to adore, to process in the one who has created us, redeemed us, sanctifies us, who is truly present in the Eucharist. Our children are going to have a wonderful day of learning at different stages in the parish about the Mass, about the Last Supper, about the Eucharist. And they're going to learn some songs to sing in honor of the adoration that will take place on the altar. I think Satan would love to disrupt this event. I think Satan would love to disrupt any event that is focused on the Eucharist. Why? Because he knows that if we concentrate on realizing that this procession marks for us how Christ gathers us, proceeds with us, as he said that he will be with us to the end of time. So if you have a chance tomorrow at 3 o'clock to be able to be there for the adoration, to share in the songs of the children, to participate in the national Eucharistic procession, to see the honor of being a part of that body of Christ. Do not let it be disrupted by the unknown or by the past. But be present as he is present. And in his presence, he will give us the strength to carry on, to be forged in these times, to be purified, so that we may all become saints. God bless you. I love you, and know that I will continue every week to give you a physical and spiritual update for the things with my cancer will continue to be challenged and different. So I will keep you always close to you, close to me in my heart, and share the goodness of the Lord.